Hi everybody, my name is Sam Pedro and welcome back to another video. So 2021 is over. I already made a video last week about my favorite book from the year, which was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. But I wanted to touch base again on the year 2021 and what I read. I read 90 books and I just wanted to share a handful of my favorites, the ones I enjoyed the most, with you today, and who knows, maybe one will strike your fancy. So I want to do this pretty quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on any single book. Instead, I'll just tell you what the book is and why I liked it and why I recommend it. Okay, so book number one is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. I loved this book and I already made 2 videos about this book, so I won't dive into it too deep, but basically this book is a collection of some of the thoughts and sayings and words of Naval Ravikant, who is a businessman. He's had a lot of success in the tech world and kind of is now just this like philosophical Twitter guru who just tweets out all of these interesting things. But this book was just amazing. It made me think a lot. It inspired me. It's very simple. It seems like every page you read has some type of nugget, some nugget of an idea that inspires you and that could change your life. And I really do love this book. I think most people, especially if you like reading business books or if you're a creative person or like to build things, there's just some wonderful things in here about how to build great products, but also how to build a great life, and how to really structure your life. So go check out The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Okay, so the next book has to do with Bitcoin. Seems like everybody is talking about Bitcoin these days. And I just wanted to educate myself about the technology behind Bitcoin, to understand a little bit more about how it works and what it is. And so I found these books called The Internet of Money. There's 3 volumes of them by Andres Antonopoulos. And these are really great, well-written essays about Bitcoin and about the blockchain and the technology behind it. I was, and I still kind of am, a Bitcoin skeptic. And this helped me kind of just understand some of the good that the technology brings and how our world could change because of it. But also at the same time kind of show that, well, it's maybe not what people think it is. And so I learned a lot about educating myself. I think in this day and age, you should be educating yourself about the new technology, especially about the blockchain and Bitcoin and what it means. And so this is a very easy to read, not too technical, but at the same time giving you just a wonderful view of what Bitcoin is and what it can be. So go check out The Internet of Money. All right, the third set of books I want to talk about is not a single book again. This is a whole series, and that's Discworld by Sir Terry Pratchett. I've done a few videos about Discworld as well. Before 2021, I had never even heard of Discworld, but it's a fantasy series. There's over 40 books. It's just huge. Terry Pratchett spent his whole life writing these books. But they're kind of, they're funny and they take place in this absurd world, but it mirrors our own. So the Discworld is a flat world that sits on the backs of 4 elephants that are on top of a giant turtle that is basically flying through space. And there's all sorts of fantasy characters that live in this Discworld. And every book has a different focus, whether it's on wizards or witches, or Death himself. And they're just really fun. I really got into it. I read something like 13 Discworld books in 2021. Just had a lot of fun. And explaining it, it might sound a little weird, but just give it a try, give it a start. I recommend starting with Mort. That's the book I really enjoyed the most of Discworld. But yeah, very interesting. Didn't see myself getting into a fantasy series this year, but I loved Discworld, so check that out as well. Okay, the next book is Memory Craft by Lynn Kelly. I already did a video about this one too, so I'll put a link right now to that video. And I'm going to give an honorable mention to Moonwalking with Einstein. I read Moonwalking with Einstein first, and that led me to Memory Craft. And so this is all about the world of memory and mnemonics. And really, I guess, how far can a human stretch their mind and how much can they memorize using mnemonic techniques? And what's awesome about Memory Craft is Lynn Kelly specializes in cultures around the world who have used mnemonic techniques for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And she goes through all of these different cultures that had some way or some system of memorizing tons of things, whether it's the Navajo tribe in Arizona that was memorizing hundreds of insects in their environment, or in Australia they'd go on these 100-mile long walks and they knew the whole route and they memorized things using that. Just an introduction to all sorts of techniques you can use to expand your ability to memorize large amounts of information. I think it's a fascinating subject. It's something I've found interesting. I mean, it talks about a guy who's memorized, whole dictionaries, and also the ways that he used to do that. So if that sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend Memory Craft by Lynn Kelly. Okay, the next one is Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. I've read a few books by Ryan Holiday. He's kind of known as the Stoic guru. He is a big follower of Stoicism and Seneca, and he shares the knowledge he's learned about what it means to be a Stoic. And I really liked this book, Ego is the Enemy, because I think it is just a great theme. And what it is the ego, a person's ego can be the enemy to growth and to getting what you want out of life. And that's something I don't want to be caught up in that. And so I read this book for kind of inspiration on how to rid myself of ego, be more humble, and just learn what ways I can go about doing that. I really liked this book. I thought it was inspirational from just living a better life and how success doesn't need to be attached with having a big ego. So I really recommend Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy. Okay, so the next one is Zen in the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. This came out quite a few decades ago, but it was so inspirational. What this is Ray Bradbury. He was a famous author. He wrote Fahrenheit 451. He also wrote The Martian Chronicles and a few plays and short stories. Just a really well-known writer. But over his life, he had written these essays about writing and the creative process and literature in general. And what Zen in the Art of Writing is it's a collection of those essays. And as someone who likes to create things, I like writing, but I also like creating other things as well. I found this to be very inspirational too, because Ray Bradbury was obsessed with writing. It was what got him up in the morning. It's what he focused on. And to hear that enthusiasm for writing, it was just inspiring for me. It made me want to get up, made me want to write, made me want to create things. And I liked it as a quick read and just offers some profound insights into creativity and into writing. And so that is Zen in the Art of Writing. Okay, so the next one is The Anthropocene Reviewed. I loved that book. It was my favorite book from the year, so go check out the video I made last week about The Anthropocene Reviewed, but just really loved John Green's book. And finally, the last book I will talk about is The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. And so this is a science fiction book, I think from the 70s, and what struck me is I'm a big fan of science fiction. I've read a lot of the older science fiction books, the classics, there's usually, when you talk about classics of science fiction, there are three authors that come to mind, the big three. That's Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke. Those are the big three. But Ursula K. Le Guin lived during that time, wrote during that time, and in some ways this was almost a better book than any of those books that the big three wrote. So I'm glad I'm finally getting to her, because she is phenomenal. She should very well be considered one of the great science fiction writers of all time. And so The Lathe of Heaven is a pretty short book. Basically, there's only 3 characters in it, and it's just a science fiction book. I don't know, I don't want to get too much into the plot, but if you're looking for a good science fiction book that kind of has some really interesting ideas in it, I recommend The Lathe of Heaven. Okay, so those were my favorite books from 2021. Again, I read 90 books, and I just shared, 7 or 8 of my favorites. Let me know what you read this year and what books you really liked. I'm always looking for book recommendations, and I would love to add it to my list to read in 2022. But thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you who take the time to watch my videos. Hopefully they're helpful to you in some way. But thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.